167 seats out of 70. Right? Much like the BJP swept India without really spending that much money in the elections 2 years ago, they've kind of lost the plot when they came to Delhi. Right? So somewhere up here is a set of truths that we'll come back. The key point is, what is it you can do to become remark-worthy? Because if you're remark-worthy, the medium already spreads you out. To get on Viacom, I need to spend money on advertising. But if I do something interesting to get on the internet, the world talks about it for free. So there's a double virtue in being able to design a product or an offering that's able to win. The next point is, how do you really implement this? A lot of traditional big company product design is about a process. I'm going to decide 2 years in advance what we're going to do. We're going to have a large product. We're going to launch it out at the end of so-and-so research. You will find that in most cases, research is going to really bias you against products. I remember in one case we were dealing with a very large FMCG company in India who was working with the research arm of my ex-company and hers, WPP, right? And I remember the company giving us a brief saying, this is a children's product, and the target audience is mothers of children aged 2 to 5, and our research very clearly says that the mother is most influenced by is her mother-in-law. We went and said, that just doesn't make sense. We said, will you give us like 5 days and we'll come back and see if we can, match the research. We went back and talked to 225 mothers of kids, who have kids aged 2 to 5. And it turned out that out of the 15 most influential people in those mothers' lives, their mother-in-laws were number 11. Number 1 was Google. Number 2 was Facebook. We tried to find out why that happened. Coincidentally, we were interviewing a person from this research company, which is part of WPP. And I said, what do you do, and so on and so forth. It says, basically our account directors decide what the client would like to see in terms of research. And we fill up the forms. So essentially it's bullshit research, right? So somebody, account director, decided the client is a very traditional woman or a traditional man. She likes the idea of mother-in-law. Let's give her research to support whatever it is, right? So there's a crazy kind of amount of business that's going on here that's based on really nothing, on no great sound principles. I'll come to each of these points. So if I look at each of these, what's the base of Gmail's success? Hotmail in those days used to offer 25 to 50 MB of free space. A simple consumer insight that the engineers, and not even the marketers, Google didn't have marketers, the engineers that Gmail had, that Google had, was that we are pack rats, we don't like to delete mail. How many of you really like to delete mail to clean up your inbox? They say, what? Can we just do with the bother of deleting mail? So let's just figure out, let's go and announce to people that we're going to have 1 GB free. In 3 months, they won the world of email. And there's been no looking back. That 1 GB is now 8 GB. Alright? The world has simply moved. What was Zara's consumer insight that helped them win against everybody else? And it's a simple test when you ladies go to Palladium and maybe there's a Burberry or a Diesel on the left and Zara on the right. And you see 10 people go to Burberry and 0 come out with a shopping bag. And you go to see 10 ladies go to Zara and 5 come out with a Zara shopping bag. What's really the secret out there? Again, there's consumer insight there. Their point was that we're going to put up these big stores. But what's the point? What happens when we put up these big stores? Women come and say, that's really interesting. Brands change their fashion and their garments twice a year. They have 2 seasons in a year. So I have 6 months to buy this. You know what? This is really nice. I'm going to buy this for my birthday. I'm going to buy that for his wedding. I'm going to buy that for Christmas. I'm going to buy that for New Year's. And they find reasons to postpone decisions to purchase. Right? So they said, what's really the point? And then the traditional marketer would say, they've seen the product. They've postponed the decision to purchase. Now we're going to use ads in Vogue and Cosmo to try to make them go back and buy. But Zara said, this is crazy. I have to make them buy. I have to increase that conversion rate. So they did something really evil. They said, every 2 weeks in a store, we'll expire products. So you go to Zara store today. So today is the 22nd. And you go there, again, on the 7th or 8th of May. You will not find the same garments. So when you go there and say, I'm going to come back in 4 weeks and buy this, you're not going to find it again. So they have actually, by creating a supply chain which changes the garments 26 times a year in Zara, it's not 26, they actually move it from store to store. So I was in Hong Kong last year when I was looking for a jacket, and one store didn't have my size, and they said, okay, there are 4 other Zaras in Hong Kong, I'm going to go to another one. They didn't have they didn't have it all, they had something else entirely. They didn't have jacket. They simply move inventory out and create artificial scarcity to make that woman buy. That was their insight, and they designed the business around that insight to become the largest brand.